It is Friday, May 17th, 2024. This is another edition of Baseball Today, presented to you by our friends over at Factor, who will be giving us our Factor question of the week. Thank you so much for logging in and sending them. Once again, a very tough decision to pick just one. You people are up to task. That is my man, Trevor Plouffe. I am Chris Rose, producer Dan, and intern Tommy along for the ride as well. Did you just drop your pencil?
Dang it. You saw that. I was trying to play it off like I didn't, but I'm a truthful guy.
You are, for the most part. All right, we got a lot to get to today. Let's start with our tip of the cap. It goes to Erasmo Ramirez of the Tampa Bay Rays, who was called into emergency relief duty last night at Fenway Park. Kevin Cash raised his hand and said, yeah, I screwed up. He lost track of how many mound visits the team had. So he had to pull his reliever, Jason Adam, who was on the mound with 2 outs to go, or with 1 out to go in the game. And you can see Adam is frustrated. Ramirez basically had very little time to warm up. He did get some time, much to the chagrin of Red Sox manager Alex Cora. He came in, he got the last out of the game. So we give him a tip of the cap for being put into a pressure situation and coming through, Plouffe.
He's not supposed to get time to warm up. I don't understand that frustration. But can you imagine if Gabe Kapler did this, the outroar that we would hear? Freaking A. Good for Cash that it worked out, because maybe it would have been a little bit louder if it hadn't.
Yeah, I mean, he came out and they said, well, in the post-game interview, they said, well, what happened? He goes, I'm in the wrong here. I lost track of how many times I had crossed the line. The minute you cross the foul fair line, that counts as a mound visit, and that's that. So got to live by it.
Can you just go out to the foul line and go, hey, man, and just like talk to him from there?
Hey, don't joke. As you are in these tournaments, these travel ball and maybe little league tournaments, if you end up doing some of that stuff, there are managers who push the rule. They will go all the way up to the line and start talking to their players. And I was always like, what are you doing, dude? Either cross the line or stay in the dugout. One of the two. Like, if I were an umpire, I'd be like, yo, bro, get your ass back in the dugout. So,
yo, bro.
Hey, I would be a great little league manager. I'd be throwing parents out left and right. I just wouldn't put up with it. Just telling you.
Youth baseball is the best, but it's also the worst.
Okay. Let's get to some of the best. The reason I'm wearing a Cincinnati Reds hat isn't because of the awesome start they've been off to. It's been a rough go for them, even though I picked them to win the National League Central this year. I still believe in you, in part because of the development of Elly De La Cruz. Last night, the Reds, they take care of the Dodgers out in L.A., and boy, he was awesome. He stole successfully on 4 of 5 attempts, giving him 30 so far in 44 games. My question for you, as he is on pace for 110 steals, have the relatively new disengagement rules done their job in making the sport more athletic and more entertaining, or has it made base running a joke?
I think you can kind of say both things here, C. Rose. First of all, what a perfect recipe for stolen bases last night. I think is it you and I that have talked about Austin Barnes before behind the plate and like kind of his inability to throw out runners. You mix that with Tyler Glasnow, who wasn't really holding him on much, and that was just like Elly was going to run wild. So I think, like I said, that was a perfect recipe for stolen bases last night. As far as the overall question, I think it's brought back some excitement and fun to the game. But some of these records and some of these seasons we're going to see do kind of seem like not a joke. I'm not going to say a joke, because you still have to have the ability to go out and do it. I mean, you watch Elly De La Cruz run. I mean, it's like 4 steps and he's just at the next base. So it's still beautiful to see that athleticism out there on display. But I mean, yeah, we're going to start seeing some of these seasons. 70 last year from Acuna. You mentioned what Elly is on pace for. Those numbers are definitely skewed from what we had from before, so they can seem jokish, but I'd rather play this type of baseball where we do have the stolen base back in the game than what we were doing before, because I think we really got to a bad place in like baseball, just the watchability of it. So I think I'd rather have what we're doing now than what we did before.
Yeah, I mean, the problem's going to come when you start comparing him to the legendary base stealers. And I will tell you this, because you weren't around when great base stealers were doing their thing. And for me, it was basically 2 guys. I would say maybe I would count Tim Raines as a third, but it was Ricky Henderson, who just lit the world on fire, primarily in the early 80s. Like when he got a walk to start up a game or got a base hit, you knew he was going to end up on third, and you could not wait to see it. You just couldn't wait to see what he was going to do to the pitcher and do to the catcher to affect the entire half inning. Vince Coleman is the other one. In fact, he is the last player to have triple digits in steals, and that was in 1987. So I'm all in favor of it. I like seeing this more than let's just wait around for the home run, or we'll deal with the strikeout, or the walk is okay. I actually think that baseball has done its job. Now, do I love the disengagement rule? No, it's amateurish. Let's call it what it is. Like, you can only disengage 2 times, and then you have to get the guy out on the 3rd time, or he ends up moving up a base. Like, that is silly. Let's call it what it is. But I guess I can live with it.
How often does that happen? I'm curious if there's stats out there. How often do you guys even pick off twice to put that into play? The games that I broadcast and the games that I watch doesn't really get to that point too often. And if it does, it's with a guy that's like a non-threat or
but you also cover a team that doesn't run a ton, right?
Twins. Yeah, they don't run a ton, but even the teams they play against, I mean, I feel like pitchers aren't picking off twice. Like they're picking off once, and then that's really it because they don't want to give that team the advantage of the 3rd time.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at also some of the steals numbers in terms of percentage. Elly De La Cruz is like at 85%. You always hear the magic number is 80% that teams are comfortable with. And like my team, the Guardians, they run like they think they're ghosts out there sometimes. And they don't think the other team can just going. And so, they get thrown out a ton. Like they were right around 70% or something in terms of stolen base success rate. But they're a team that has to push it, right? Because they don't have the pop of some of these other teams. So I'm okay as long as it gives teams a different way to try and win ball games. But I think you could also call it exactly what it is, which is kind of cheesy.
I mean, all the things that are new kind of feel cheesy until they're not, and they're just implemented to the game. So, I mean, the pitch clock to me feels cheesy, but here we are.
I'm going to set the over-under at 99.5 steals for Elly De La Cruz.
I'm hitting the over if he's healthy all year. Like that's just the one thing. If he's not healthy, he's gonna have to continue at this clip basically to do that.
Well, what it means is he's got to get on base.
Yeah, get on base, yeah.
And so he's really done a great job in, for a while after the first 2 weeks of the year, cutting down a bit on strikeouts. I haven't checked his strikeout numbers probably in the last 10 days or so. But, he's becoming a more complete ball player, and that's what I like about him.
378 OBP this year,
right.
As opposed to a 300 last year. So that's a massive difference, and the reason he's able to steal all those bags.
And he's fun. He is fun. I loved his post-game interview last night with Jim Day saying, "This is my town, L.A." Was it because he played one of a video game? Isn't that what he said? He rolls through town. It's pretty good.
What is he playing? Grand Theft Auto? Love that.
Yeah, he did say Grand Theft Auto, so that's why he likes L.A. He's very
likes L.A.
Played the video game.
He likes the real L.A.
He also said it was the first place he ever visited in America. So good stuff. Yanks, first American League team to 30 wins as their scoreless streak has now reached 26 consecutive innings. Sorry, Plouffe, they took it to your Twins, sweeping the 3-game set. As we all know, the reigning Cy Young Award winner, Garrett Cole, has not thrown a single pitch this season. How surprised are you? It's New York's pitching that is actually leading the way.
I feel like we've talked about this before. I think you should be surprised and you can be happy about it, but there's no doubt, like even Yankee fans, I feel like are surprised at the success that these guys have had because there was a lot of question marks coming into the year. I mean, Luis Gil, when did he come up in 2021 or 2022? And then he had TJ. You never know what guys are going to look like, coming off of Tommy John, but he had a good spring. Now he looks like the best pitcher on the staff. Like he's had a phenomenal start to the year. And then Cortez, he was injured last year, so he's healthy this year. What's he going to do? He's thrown the ball in the strike zone more, so he's had a good start to the year. And Clark Schmidt has had to work on getting lefties out, and he's been able to do that. And it's like I knew Stroman was going to be good. I don't know why I knew Stroman was going to be good. I just knew he was going to be good. He's looked great, especially against my Twins. But I think you have to give a lot of credit to Matt Blake and identifying like where things kind of went wrong last year and saying we need to clean this shit up. So I think that it's okay to say that you're surprised this is happening. And if you're a Yankees fan, like you're absolutely stoked knowing that, I mean, the rankings of the pitchers, it's nuts. They're 3rd in ERA, 9th in WHIP, 6th in Ks per 9, 6th in hits per 9. And Garrett Cole, like you mentioned, hasn't thrown a pitch at the big league level this year. So hats off to them, man. It's got to be a good feeling.
Before answering the question, I have another question, which is what happens if and when Cole returns? And he's starting to throw the ball, and it sounds like he's getting closer and closer, and there's more positivity coming out of the Bronx. It's not as easy an answer as you might think.
No, I don't think it is. I'm trying to think. I didn't even mention Carlos Rodon. I'm sorry about that. I think that I don't know. Is there a talk of a 6-man? Like, are we gonna do that type of thing? Like, can you do it? Maybe.
The thing is that there's a heavy veteran presence in that. And there's a lot of veterans that do not like going to a 6-man rotation, right? Their entire career, they've been on a 5-man. They get their 4 days and it's time to go to work. Like you don't, those guys don't want to pitch once a week.
It's interesting. I don't know what you do because Clark Schmidt's, you have him as a starter now. He's looked really good. You're not taking him out of the rotation. Luis Gil's not going out of the rotation. Carlos Rodon's not going out of the rotation. Stroman's not going out of the rotation. And Cole's not going out of the rotation. So that leaves you with Nestor Cortez. Is he a long guy? I can see that.
He's also a lefty and a totally different look than anybody on the entire pitching staff. So that's going to be fascinating if that's the way they go.
Or you know what this is doing? Taking it here and giving it over here. That's called a trade, C-Rose.
Oh, they're not. No,
you need the depth. I agree with you. I agree with you. They need the depth.
With all those guys, some of whom have had injury history, you can't do that. That just doesn't make sense. They'll figure it out, but it will become a story, and then it'll become a bigger story if something goes wrong and they make a weird decision or something like that. But yeah, you know what? I think out of all the contending teams, it was probably the biggest question mark going into the season was the Yankees rotation.
Of course, yeah.
What you laid out. You could maybe say the Dodgers similarly because so many of their big names were not starting the year. And then the guy they made the highest paid starter in the history of the sport had never thrown a pitch on American soil in Major League Baseball. So maybe those two teams' rotations, there were similar questions. I think more with the Yankees without Cole. And they've done a hell of a job. They really have. You can say whatever you want about the New York Yankees. They've done a really, really good job.
I love when you say American soil. That gets me going.
Does that really get you going?
Yeah, I'm a true patriot, man. I love this country.
Okay. I do too. Okay. Let's see what intern Tommy sent us. Blake has also turned Luke Weaver into the best bullpen arm after Clay Holmes. He was in contention for a starting spot at the beginning of the year. Yeah, he's totally changed, right? He became, I thought for a while he was going to try and break Barry Bonds' single-season home run record, but from the pitching standpoint. And what? I thought he was going to give up like 75.
That was mean. That was kind of mean.
It was. But he was kind of on that track for a while. You don't care. All right. Are you ready?
Let's talk more Yankees.
We will in a second, but first we have a word from one of our sponsors, Plouffe.
Yes, and that sponsor is Black Box Sports AI. Today's episode is brought to you by them. It's our favorite tool to get the edge for MLB betting, and for the casual fan, betting baseball can feel like the unknown. But with Black Box Sports, the number crunching is done for you. It's not designed to work overnight, so you need to follow the system for the rest of the season, and you'll be shocked how effective it is. So stop tailing the moonshots. Bet smarter with Black Box. Last year, they finished up over 30 units. So whatever you bet, whether it's $5, whether it's $10, 30 times that, that's what they're up last night. They hit on 68% of their picks along the way. What I like about Black Box Sports, and Jake is subscribing, he's told me all about this. He said they post their winners and their losers, so they're very transparent about it, and a lot of places don't do that. So Black Box Sports AI is the tool to bet MLB smarter. Get started today using code BASEBALL at blackboxsportsai.com for your first week free. That's code BASEBALL at blackboxsportsai.com. Black Box Sports AI, smarter baseball bets.
All right, we return to the show with news for the Yankees off the field, where managing general partner Hal Steinbrenner, he was on Jack Curry's podcast, and of course, the name of one Juan Soto came up.
Well, I think we'd like to see him here for the rest of his career. I don't think there's any doubt of that. His agent, Scott, doesn't tend to normally do deals in the middle of a season. Neither do I. I think it can be a distraction. But as I said in spring training when I met with you guys, I mean, this is a unique situation and a very unique player. So, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if there was a conversation or two had possibly during the course of the season. I think it's worth doing at some point.
My doors has been always open, whenever he want to start talking with Scott and all those people, they're always open. They always open to hear whatever he has. And for me, I just focus on the game right now.
What are you laughing at?
Well, my door is always open if you have $500 or $600 million to come in with. Other than that, it's closed.
By the way, of course, Scott is his agent, Scott Boras.
My friend, Scott Boras.
Yes, everybody's friend, right? Okay, so after hearing that, did Yankee fans feel better about Juan Soto staying more than just a single season?
No, I don't think none of that stuff that was said is anything new, or you should be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. They want Juan Soto to stay here forever. And Juan Soto says, yeah, I'll talk about somebody giving me $500 or $600 million. Like, that's nothing new here. So you should feel the exact same way. You should feel good that, number one, he's helping your team win. Number two, the fact that he's gotten off to a good start means he's feeling very comfortable. The rest of that interview that Juan Soto gave, if you go watch it, he talks about, like, there's a great Latin culture there in New York and how he feels comfortable. So I think that is more important than any of this other stuff. I think I said this and you kind of shot it down. I said, I would love to see the Yankees approach him and give him a real offer. Like, not some like, hey, like, this is our first offer. Give him a real offer and see what he says. I know that's kind of like not a great negotiating tactic, but at this point, like, I think it's past that. I think you need to get this guy and have him stay in your uniform. So you could either give him a number that you think is like maybe your best offer, or say, tell us what your go number is and we'll do it. Like, I think they have to do something like that, because if they do let him reach the open market, things are going to get a little weird. Steve Cohen is going to go after this guy, and he's got more bullets in the clip than the Steinbrenners do. That's just the bottom line. So they would be foolish if they didn't walk in that open door and just say, here's some money, Juan.
Tom B in our chat says, I wonder how much of this offseason and the Boras 4 plays into the thought process of Soto, considering his options with an extension. It's a good point. I think nothing, because there is no
He's
comparison.
different.
Yeah, there's no comparison between Juan Soto and, with all due respect, the other 4 guys who waited until very, very late to sign.
A bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush.
We're back to that again.
I did it.
We're back to that.
Crushed it.
Second time this year, you nailed it. So back to my original question, which, should Yankee fans feel better after hearing that? No, I mean, not at all. Not at all. Do I think that he wants to stay? I think he would be extremely happy being a Yankee the rest of the time. He talked a couple of times during that 5-minute interview about how much he loves the Yankee fan base. And he said that's the biggest difference between playing here and playing in Washington, where he said they have great fans. And San Diego, he kind of upped the ante and said they have really great fans. He said, but this is different. He said, when you're on the road, and we know that. I mean, we know that. There are very few teams where the fan bases consistently travel. And New York, because of their history, because of the number of championships they've won, because it is been generationally passed down from family member to family member. Even if you live outside of the tri-state area, you can become a Yankee fan basically wherever in this country. And so I understand that. But to think that he's gotten this close to free agency, the Yankees offer is going to be there. They're not going to pull it. They're not going to say, oh, well, you made it to free agency, forget it now. There's no way in hell that's going to happen, because if word got out about that and Soto ends up going to Queens or somewhere else, you think Yankee fans are ever going to let the Steinbrenner family live that one down?
You're saying they're going to offer him something, and if he says no, they have to honor that offer even into the offseason.
The Yankees.
Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that the Yankees, it won't get to the point where let's say there is an offer made during the season, just put whatever number you want on it, $557 million, okay? And Juan Soto says, I really appreciate the offer. I'm going to look at free agency. The Yankees aren't going to say, well, if you go to free agency, then you can forget about that offer. There's no way that happens.
I don't think the Mets ever overtake the Yankees as far as like New York's baseball team. It's similar to Lakers and Clippers out here. Clippers are gonna have this beautiful new arena, this rich owner. They can even win championship 2 years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
It's still a Lakers town. It's just how it is. But if Steve Cohen goes out and outbids the Yankees, I think a lot of that maybe goes down there. The Yankees are never supposed to be outbid. I know the times have changed there in New York. They're not doing or acting like people have this. They have this perception that the Yankees go out and get whoever they want. That's not true. They don't. They get their guy every once in a while, but not every single time. If they get outbid and that's a known thing, hey, this is our top offer and we can't go above that, and Steve Cohen goes, well, I can. I think that changes things a little bit. I'm not saying the Mets will overtake the Yankees ever, but I think Steve Cohen wants to push for that. I know Steve Ballmer out here wants to push for the Clippers to overtake the Lakers. It's a long process, but these guys got long money.
Yeah, and as long as Steve Cohen believes that he can do that, then that in the end, that's all that matters. I mean, there's nothing that's going to stop him from continuing to spend money.
There's nothing.
Feels that way.
I mean, especially because, as you mentioned, the stock market is up so much, Chris.
And by the way, if Juan Soto and his representatives know that about Steve Cohen, why wouldn't you use that to your advantage?
Oh, they're going to.
Yeah. And I think the last point here is Juan Soto has already won a ring. And I don't know if that plays into his thought process at all. He could be considered one of the great players ever. Sometimes some people use this. I don't. Well, he doesn't have a ring. So how great? I think it's a silly argument in every sport. I consider Dan Marino one of the greatest quarterbacks I've ever seen in the history of the sport. He made it to the Super Bowl in his second year and then didn't sniff it after that. But some people use that as the determining factor of greatness when you're listing whatever.
I think especially in baseball, you can't do that.
agree
I think in football, it's more of a point, especially with a quarterback, because they control a lot in that game. But baseball players, what are you supposed to do?
Well, I just think in any sport, I really believe it. I think the NBA is the one area where you have the most control because of the limited number of players and how quickly your fortunes can turn if you get one amazing player. But still, with that being said, Juan Soto can determine his future any way he wants to. If he wants to strictly go to the highest bidder, great, go do that. If, comfort is a huge part of your decision, maybe you take a little less to be somewhere else. That's fine too. So whatever it is, it's his decision. And I'm not going to.
What would be comfortable for him? What are you talking about?
Well, let's say there was a $50 million difference over the life of a contract offer.
Okay.
I would rather
between Miami and New York. Is Miami more comfortable because it's closer to
no, but even if it's New York and New York, I'm talking organizationally.
I think that's a good question, and we're talking way too much about the Yankees. But let's say there is we'll say 50. Let's say $50 million difference. The Mets offer $50 million more than the Yankees. Do you think he goes to the Mets or stays with the Yankees? How much more are the Mets going to have to offer? Or is that even what he's worried about?
I think we will get to this at a later date.
Okay.
Nick in the chat wanted to know which teams other than the New York teams would be a good spot for him. Yeah. I mean, I don't think the Cubs would spend that type of money on him. I don't know if Toronto would. I think the Cubs would be an amazing landing spot for him, but I don't see that happening.
The Brewers.
Yeah, no, definitely don't see that one happening. Jared Jones, he outdueled Justin Steele to take Pittsburgh's series opener against the Cubs on Friday. It is Paul Skenes' turn to take to the hill at Wrigley Field. Do you expect him to be better in his second start versus the Cubs, or will Chicago have the upper hand, having seen him less than a week ago? We'll go a little faster on this.
Yeah, typically when a starting pitcher faces a team for the second time in as many starts, 5 days rest, there's a 0.25 ERA expectancy bump. So a quarter of a run bump in that statistically, historically. But I think this is a different situation that was his debut. So the nerves are there. And his fastball command necessarily wasn't where it should be. I think he's going to be better against the Cubs. He was pretty dang good the first time out. Walked some people, allowed the homer to Nico Horner, but I think he's gonna be better this time. I think for a portion of that game, he dominated the Cubs hitters. I think with better command and a kind of a more relaxed feel out there. Now that he's made that start, he gets it. He knows what it means to make a major league start. I think he'll be better.
I actually don't.
Okay.
I still think the nerves thing will get him, right? First one was at home. This one is at one of the most historic parks that we've got, right? Day game Friday afternoon. Everybody's feeling good. Everybody wants to see Skenes. He did allow 9 base runners in 4+ innings. It wasn't like he was unhittable. He did have 7 strikeouts, but
I guess what's the wind going to be too? That's the question.
That could be a problem, right? You never know about the weather on the north side. Gave up 6 hits, walked 2, hit a batter. So I think today could be tough for him. Now, I'm rooting for him. He's one of these guys I will be watching at 11:20 Pacific time, and I want to see him do well. I hope I'm wrong. I hope when we get back here on Monday, I can say, hey, I missed that one, but I'm not so sure I will. I do want to get to the Shohei bobblehead question before we get to our factor question of the week, but we'll do this one as well pretty quickly. 40,000 Shohei bobbleheads given out last night in their series. In part because in there were 1,700 mysterious road uni, so gray uni Shohei bobbleheads. Nice job by the marketing department there. The question is, have you ever stood in line for hours to get something good?
I'll answer the question. No, I'm not a line stander. I don't like it. I just don't like doing it. I can live without what you have if I have to stand in a line like that. I do want to tell a quick story. My good friend Joe Rosen, shout out Joe. We call him Big Bet Joe. He was at the game, season ticket holder with the Dodgers. He got a great one. And immediately went on eBay. Those things were selling for $1,400. He said, do I sell? I said, no, you hold, because that's what I do. That's my market strategy. Just hold.
$1,400?
Yeah, like they were like legit selling for like $1,200, and they started getting listing for $1,400. I wonder what Dan, check out what they're listing for right now on eBay, please.
Or intern Tommy can.
Yeah, one of you two.
Yeah.
Knuckleheads.
No, now you be nice.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, people don't like it when they.
I'm a hazer.
Yeah, when our producer or an intern can't fight back. I always get yelled at in the chat about that. We're just having fun here. We kid because we love. I have never stood in line for anything. I'm not a gamer, so I'm not a game system guy. Shoes, I don't care. Sporting event, no way. The only time I've ever had to stand in a line is because it's a must, like at the DMV prior to appointments.
Oh,
I remember one time I had to go get something, like I was running late with something. I forget if it was getting the car tags or something. I had to go out there and sit at 6 a.m. I pulled one of those like folding chairs and sat in line. So the thing was going to open at 8 and I was going to be first in line. I was not going to sit there and show up and have 20 people ahead of me.
I'm with you on that. I just can't. I can't do it.
All right. It is time right now for our factor question of the week. And don't forget to head on over to factormeals.com/today50. If you use that code, you're going to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That is a big, big time deal. Thanks so much for the questions. This one coming from Sean. By the end of the year, 28 of the 30 MLB teams will have City Connect uniforms. Based on the design/branding, would you say that City Connect jerseys were a positive or a negative for the sport?
I think they're positive for the sport. I like it especially when they try to do something different. I like Miami's. I like San Diego's. I even started to like Detroit's a little bit when I saw them on. I think by and large they're positive, and baseball is so traditional with its uniforms for the most part. If we do see changes, they're very subtle. There are very few like real rebrands of jerseys. So I think this is something cool for the fans, man. Like it just gives you a little bit something different. And because we're doing so much of that nowadays with cleats and all the swag that guys wear, I think that it just coincides with that. It's more exciting. I like it.
I love the idea. I think the execution has been a bit flawed.
For a few.
Yeah, it has been. And I'm going to give an example for tonight where not everything is a cohesive unit as one. I understand the business of getting more streaming services involved in sports, right? We just saw it with the NFL. They're putting 2 Christmas Day games on Netflix. So I understand the contract that they have with Apple TV for 2 Friday night games. The Cleveland Guardians are busting out their new City Connects tonight for the first time, and their game against the Twins is on Apple TV. I don't have a problem with games being on Apple, but when there's 162 games, you're not going to watch every game. So you might say, oh, well, screw it. I'm not going to pay the money. I don't have Apple Plus. I'm not going to watch the game. You're missing an opportunity for Cleveland to show off these uniforms, which they're very proud of, and a lot of the Cleveland audience isn't going to see it. They're just not going to see it.
Yeah, but it's not the only time they're going to wear the jerseys.
It's not the only time, but it's the only first time they're ever going to do it. So if you're going to make a big deal about it, have it on your local carrier, at least where more and more people can presumably see it.
I'm all in on the Cleveland jerseys. I think they're awesome. I kind of
like
want them
them
to
too.
send me one.
How about me? How about a guy who actually bleeds Cleveland red, white, and blue?
For all those strikeouts I put up against your Guardians, like I deserve something. I helped out a lot
on that one. I'll call my guy Curtis Dansberg. See if we can hook you up, maybe. All right. Thanks again for our factor questions of the week. I say plural because you guys did such a good job, and it's hard for us to narrow it down to just one. Really fun week. Everybody did a tremendous job around here. What is that? What are you drawing?
That's me and you. Can you tell which one is you? I drew that for you.
Really? I mean, I'm trying to. I've lost 20 pounds.
Well, I mean, one's you, one's me. I didn't say which one.
When you said, can you guess which one's you? I mean, it is great. I told you, did I ever tell you the story that when I was a manager of our high school baseball team, senior year, I talked about our head coach who passed away. Remember a few weeks ago?
Yes.
The assistant was our chemistry teacher, a guy named George Johnston, who was probably the closest I was to any teacher at university school. Thick New York accent. So he's like taking down everybody's size for their uniform. And I jokingly said, Coach Jay, what about me? What uniform for me? He goes, Rose, we don't have uniforms in pair size.
That's messed up. That's messed up.
It was good. It was very fun.
Although this thing is the shape of a pear if you really look at it.
Exactly. I don't have to run from it. I am what I am. Childbirth and hips. I would have had the Rose's third child in this family.
Oh, my God.
Everybody have a tremendous sports weekend. Be good. Be safe out there. We want to see you back with us on Monday. So for our one-of-a-kind producer, Dan Rourke, our talented intern, Tommy, that is the uber-talented Trevor Plouffe. I am Chris Rose. We will see you Monday on Baseball Today, presented to you by Factor.